Yes, welcome on in, everybody, to the Saturday Night Network for another edition of SNL Stories, our interview podcast here on the SNN, where we speak to SNL alumni about their time at the show. And joining us once again on this very special interview is James Stephens. James, how are you?
I'm great. We've got stories, John.
Yes. Yes, we do. That's very exciting for us today, especially because if you've been following along everything you need to know about Saturday Night Live, our new video series we've been releasing week by week, we just released season 6 of Everything You Need to Know About SNL, and that is a crazy season. The first season after Lorne Michaels leaves the show, we have Jean Doumanian taking over, bringing in an all-new cast. It's a cast that people need to warm up to, and it takes them a long time. But there are a lot of hidden gems in this season if you look close enough. And two of them are Denny Dillon and Gail Matthius, who ended up becoming great friends. And if you've been following along with the podcast, you know that we spoke to Denny Dillon last season. So we thought it was a great opportunity to bring two former cast members on together to share some stories about their time at the show. So James, you must be very excited to speak to Denny and Gail.
Very excited. Denny, as you mentioned, we sort of have this friendship now that's developed. You and I, we had lunch with her and actually Mark Hampton, her comedy partner, one of the more recent times we were in New York. And Gail, I'm so excited to finally meet her because it's been years that I've just, some of our friendly podcasts, we've heard her being interviewed before in some other places. So it's great to have her on. And as you mentioned, at the show, especially maybe during season 6, despite the stress and the pressure, the two of them, I think, really have this genuine love and care for each other that I think will probably come across in the interview. I'm really looking forward to having the two of them on together.
Yeah, in particular, I do want to shout out Andy Hoagland's, our great friend's interview with Gail Matthius that he just did for Vulture. So you can go back and check that out. A lot of great information there. And you know what? I always think it's really cool whenever we have two cast members on together, just to see their interactions with each other and get that chemistry. Like, you really get them bringing interesting moments out of each other. So I think this is going to be a very interesting experience for everyone watching along. And whether you're a fan of season 6 or not, I think this is a great supplement to watching that season. So I hope you enjoy this very special podcast we have with Denny and Gail, and James and I will be back at the end of it to wrap it all up. So without further ado, here's SNL Stories with Denny Dillon and Gail Matthius. Yes, that is right. Welcome, everybody, on in to another edition of SNL Stories, the show on the Saturday Night Network where we get to talk to some SNL alumni. And in this case, we're speaking to two former SNL cast members, people who are at the show together, to hear some amazing stories about season 6 of Saturday Night Live. So what a great show we have in store for you today. Let's bring in our guests. And first up, we got somebody you know very well here on the SNN, and that is the lovely Denny Dillon. Denny, how are you?
I'm pretty great, John and James and Gail.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that's wonderful to hear, Denny. And of course, the first time we get to speak to her on this show, and that is the amazing, incredible Gail Matthius, who's joining us. First time getting to talk to her. Gail, how are you?
Shucks, I'm just swell. I don't live in the South, but at the moment, that's the accent I'm using.
Well, that is okay. Accents are welcomed here. We want to hear all the stories, all the fun times that you've had together. So, Gail, I want to hear what you're up to. I know a lot of our listeners may have just started to get to know you and your work because we are releasing this Everything You Need to Know About Saturday Night Live series as we speak. And last week we released the season 6 episodes. So people got to check out all of the crazy things that happened during your year at Saturday Night Live. So, Gail, why don't you catch the listeners up? Like, what are you up to now? Tell everybody what's going on.
Oh, God. Should I go backwards? I think that's
anything.
Best.
We want to know everything.
Yeah. Well, the fabulous thing I'm involved in right now is I'm in a rock and roll band. I'm the lead female singer. We just started a little mini tour the other night. We opened at the Cinema Bar, a total dive where we're called the Shambles. And we lived up to our name that night. And It was a little messy, but it was so fun. And so we did that in Culver City. And then Saturday, August 3rd, we have a show in Santa Monica. And then then our tour of Los Angeles ends in Sherman Oaks, under the Sherman Oaks, for a backyard rock and roll picnic. So the Shambles have a mini tour. And that's what's most recently happening and kind of current. And then I was recently had a 3-part appearance in a show called Dark Winds, where I play Mrs. Swenson, the detention librarian officer. Before that, I had a couple of shows in before COVID, though, of course. And I have grandchildren. I have 2 beautiful married daughters, and
Wow.
married to my high school boyfriend. But I won't say everything now.
Okay, yeah.
I'll save something.
Sure. We're excited to hear
And
more.
then my cartoon, and then the whole cartoon career, that was big. That was
Amazing. Yeah. I've heard a lot of stuff about your amazing voiceover career as well. So that's awesome.
I just want to say Gail's band is terrific, and she plays harmonica and sings. And I'll tell you, I hope you're going to add it to this, because I play it almost every day. That song you sent me, Gail, because it makes me so happy.
You're Still Standing There, Baby. That's the name of the song by Steve Earle.
I've got it pulled up here because Gail sent it to me right before we started recording. So maybe we can get that and circulate that. This is great. I'm just so excited to hear how much you're loving life and all the great things you're doing.
Oh, it's just, and this is all part of it. The whole 50th anniversary is just another Easter egg on the whole thing. I mean, I had this little 3-part arc in this TV show, and this rock and roll
on FX. You didn't mention
AMC.
FX,
well,
okay.
I wouldn't have said FX because that would have been wrong.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
AMC, everybody.
AMC.
But yeah, this is so great, and it's so cool to get to see your dynamic together. It's really one of the first times that we're having 2 SNL cast members on together. And I know, Denny, when we interviewed you last year, you spoke so highly of Gail and said, you guys have remained friends. It's like over 40 years, almost, I guess, going on 43, 44 years that you 2 have known each other. And, I just would love, as we're starting off the interview, just so that people can get to know the 2 of you and your relationship better. Denny, just tell me, what does it mean to you to be such good friends with Gail for so long, and everything that you built together at Saturday Night Live, and coming together almost half a century later to just talk about your memories?
Well, Gail and her husband were in New York. I think it was the beginning of May, and we got together, and I had not seen her or her husband, who I've known for a long time, certainly pre-COVID. Anyways, we just laughed ourselves silly. Thought we would get kicked out of the restaurant from laughing. We just couldn't stop laughing and roaring.
And there was no drinking involved. It was the middle of the day.
No, middle of the day. And we were just crying, laughing, doing like a million characters and improv were coming out of us. So I was just thinking, not to get too sentimental, but
I know.
I was crying.
We started already.
COVID was like such 4 years. And then to see a friend, and I just had this thing in my heart. I thought, there is nothing in the world as important as an old friend, let alone an old pal who makes you laugh till you cry. And I adore Gail. I adore her husband, John. And, we had such chemistry together. It was effortless. But now I'll let you talk, Rowena.
Well, we came together like those Scotty dogs, the little black and white dog on the show, because alliances were formed so quickly. And
what are the Scotty dogs thing? I don't know that.
The little magnets, little Scotty dog, a little Scotty dog, and we just went.
Yeah,
you and I, very early on.
We loved each other so much and made each other laugh so much. We worked, every single day, and we got together on our day off. Now that's crazy.
You, Denny, you're coming from Cleveland, Ohio originally, right? And
Yes.
and that's why I think we get along so well. You and I have been
Oh, right.
good friends over the years. I'm from Ohio, but the Dayton area. Gail, you're from South Dakota, if I'm not mistaken, originally.
Yeah.
So you guys meet at SNL in New York City and immediately just gravitate towards one another.
I think that was that Midwest mentality. I just am drawn to Midwesterners. And let me just put a little button on and send some love back Denny's way too. I'm going to totally do a Barbara Walters and start weeping, but yeah, she is just near and dear to me. Doesn't matter how much time we don't see each other. We had that really intense experience together. And I love you.
I love you too, honey.
Oh, God.
You know what I also want to say? I bet they don't even know this about us, but when I moved out to LA, which was, I think it was, oh God.
Yeah,
I think it was 85, 86.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway, I didn't know anybody in LA, just Gail. That's the only person I knew, and she made me feel at home. Anyway, we started working on a comedy act, which we did together. And it was extremely funny. It was called Beside Ourselves. And we did that we wrote these wonderful sketches, and we got to sing, which was something that we always wished we could do on SNL, sing together.
Beside ourselves. Nice. We did a lot of characters beside ourselves. Huh?
Well, one of the favorites, of course, is I would say Vicky and Debbie, no doubt. But don't you think, I'm asking both of you sort of like when you watch TV or even a movie for that matter, and you see actors, you can just sense sometimes that gravitational pull that they have towards each other. I mean, I think those of us who have witnessed your being on screen together at SNL can pick upon that real love that you have for each other. I think it's, you can sense that. And I think that we talked about this, Denny, some of our other folks who from your cast or castmates that are no longer with us, Charlie, I think you guys were pretty close to, is what it sounded like, and Gilly, as you guys referred to Gilbert. But I wanted to just say this as we ask you some questions about, that season that you were there, is before you kind of knew us, Denny, I think you were skeptical. You're like, oh, these guys are going to pick apart season 6 or whatever. And for us, it's really the love for the show and the love for comedy and the evolution. And I think one of the things that made things so difficult, perhaps, or some of the conflict was, it was really the first time there was that kind of cast turnover. Now, the show, as it's approaching its 50th anniversary, today you just expect, people come and go. And so, that kind of wasn't necessarily fair, I think. There's a lot of firsts. That was one of the firsts in terms of a cast turnover. And I think a lot of, America is just like, who are these people? But if they would have just given you, a little bit more time. People right now, I think, as Jon mentioned, sorry, I'm getting long-winded, but this is just really exciting for me and Jon, I know, to say there's always new people finding the show. And especially now that it's on, Peacock, and you can go back and see old episodes, there's always new folks that are gravitating towards it and finding you all. And another first that I would be remiss to not mention is that opening. So there's that cold open. If I'm not mistaken, we see our host, Elia Gould, but the first new cast member we see is Gail in the bed, because they're all there in bed, right? And the first live from New York is Denny. So we've got two of the firsts that really set the stage to what I think is an underrated season.
Yeah, it was a hot spot. I didn't really realize it till after the fact, I would say. I had been in LA a year I'd been doing my stand-up act and all that, and then I thought, oh yeah, that's about long enough. A year later, I get on Saturday Night Live. Yeah, that's how you do. That's how we go. That's how we do it. And it was pretty fast, and I think Denny was a lot more experienced. Well, I know she was a lot more experienced professionally than I was, and I just thought it was kind of like, oh well, yeah, okay. I'm on Saturday Night Live now, and we're doing sketches, so let's go. My back barked at me a fair amount for the first time during that season. There was some pressure, but I was like, oh, this is just how it is. This is what it's like to be under scrutiny. But we got work and fun sketches to create, and guys to gravitate and hang out with that our comedy sense was the same, and we also gravitated towards them. Like Denny and I just went right to Mel and Billy, and well, who else do we gravitate towards?
And those were the writers that came in with you guys at the same time that were very comfortable
and
with you, Gail.
Those two happened to be also in my improv group in Los Angeles.
Right.
Mel Green and Billy Brown, right?
Mel Green and Billy Brown. Yep.
And we had a nice ear, and Pam Norris, she was very open to our ideas and stuff, and as well as Terry Sweeney, who was a writer at that time.
Yes.
And as far as, maybe I don't know. I'm so glad to know that new people are discovering us. I think you guys, and the first season I was of the original Saturday Night Live, I did a guest spot on with my comedy partner, Mark Hampton. So I had met all the originals, and they were all geniuses. So when it came time, but there'd never been a new cast, and the audiences were freaking out about a new cast. And so we had
that additional pressure. Yeah.
We had a lot of pressure and a lot of leaks. And a lot of stuff that was very difficult that had nothing to do with us or acting or anything. So we had a few curveballs against us right from the top. But as far as an experience, I was so fortunate, and Gail too, that we found each other, and we had such an electric comic chemistry, which was just wonderfully exciting. And to be on a show, and I'm sure you felt it too, coming in from your stand-up, the idea that you could give them a character and tell them the idea, and then all of a sudden it was all created. You had a wig and costumes and everything.
And words. We got words.
Words, yes. And also, I just want to say the one thing which you probably know from everyone you've talked to, the idea of doing live TV. There's nothing more magnificent. If you've done that, you could do brain surgery.
Anything. The one thing, kind of back to the pressure and all that kind of stuff, when we would get interviewed, people would say, well, who are you like? Are you like Gilda? Are you like Jane? Are you like Lorraine? And I'd say, God damn it, I'm me. I'm Gail Matthius from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and she's Denny Dillon from Cleveland, Ohio.
And as you should, because I mean that was even that cold open, where Elliot Gould, as the host, is asking, who are you like, and which is kind of an absurd premise if you really think about it, because that actually serves you up.
I think we do that now, James. I'm saying you fall into that naturally. Like we interviewed Christina Ebersol a few months ago, who was on the season after.
I love her. What a brilliant Broadway actress and singer.
We love her too. So she was on season 7. She was the year after you, and we were talking to her about one of the new cast members that's on season 49. Believe it or not, which just happened, where where Chloe Trost came in and she sings a lot. So we spoke to Christine about the comparisons between people who sing on the show and stuff. So I do think that it's very natural to archetype cast members as they start to come in. Because it was the first time, I don't think it did you any favors, given that the first thing you're going to see on television is, people putting you in a box. And that probably wasn't fair.
Well, one of the most brilliant things on our first season was Gail. They did that wonderful spoof of the Calvin Klein commercial, Brooke Shields.
Yes.
God, yes,
And
yes.
she was so brilliant in that, and that was thrilling. We got to have some, the wonderful thing also working with Jean Domanian. I found she really wanted to bring the women,
Yep.
which had previously been pretty much a boys' club.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but she wanted to bring the women to the fore. So we received a lot of chances with her at the helm.
Good point. Really
Can I
good
ask about
point.
the Calvin Klein commercial?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I would love to know, because Gail, I don't know if you've spoken about that one too much, but was that a concept that you had come up with? I know it was like a runner throughout an episode where you were playing Brooke Shields and doing the I think they called it cloven hind jeans.
What becomes between me and my jeans? My brain? Was that the
my brains? I was plucking my eyebrows. You know what comes between me and my clovens? My brains. Something along those lines. I would like to take credit for it, but I don't think so. I think, my coloring was similar, and,
Right.
maybe, God bless Pam Norris, she might have, Goddess bless Pam Norris, she might have come up with that. I don't know.
You were magnificently beautiful and still are.
Oh. Well,
Yeah.
I'll do this. I'm going to do this podcast anytime with you, Denny Dillon.
Okay.
You cuteness.
And fortunately, I got a good memory.
Yeah.
Cheap joke.
Well,
Oh, God.
Well, can I ask
Anyway.
also, Gail, I think you used a word before when you were describing you entering season 6, which I think is really important to understand this season a little bit. And you used the word alliance, which I think it's interesting because we know about your relationship with Denny, and we mentioned Charlie and a couple of the writers. For me, I've always wondered about the extended time off between season 5 and season 6. I don't believe that season 6 starts until November, is it? It starts like much later than the typical television season. And it's always been explained sort of that the extra time off was to get, your cast prepared for the show. But from like your perspective, was there like any group bonding exercises or retreats in the way that there was with some of the original cast for you guys to get to know each other better?
No. I mean, it was just like, just hang out, come to 30 Rock on, what floor was it? 17?
17 for the offices.
17.
Yeah.
I remembered. Just come and hang out, start spitballing, start coming up with stuff. It wasn't until later that Del Close came in. That was wild.
From Second City.
Yeah,
and Dean brought him in to help us all. But that was also one of the huge differences between us and the original cast, which we were following, was a lot of them knew each other from Second City. They'd worked together. I believe Jane Curtin was from New York, but she was the only one. I think she was from the theater too, as I had come from the theater, but
Right.
we didn't know each other. And there were no drugs.
Yeah.
No, I remember one of the reviewers said we should have been on drugs. No.
Was there ever an inclination of like, okay, well, sort of like going to camp, like let's all go out together tonight to get to know each other better? Or it was just so like, hey, come into work, like learn your lines, great stuff.
My apartment was not available when I first got to New York for some reason. And so I actually slept, I think that's where my back problem started. I slept on Anne Risley's sofa.
Wow.
And then it was a sectional. So I think over the course of the night, that's when I developed back problems. And then there was a certain point she was living with her boyfriend, Snowden.
Wow, I remember that name.
Yeah, Snowden. And then there came a certain point where it was clear that I was overstaying my welcome, and my back was saying so as well. So then I got my apartment. But yeah, I mean, and maybe Ann and I didn't start off on a very good foot because I stayed too long. I don't know what the deal was with my apartment. But so, yeah, Ann, I don't recall hanging out with her. You know, maybe Charlie, you and I just started hanging out.
Yeah, I would say
Gilly was always just sort of, huh?
Yeah. Joe took Gilly under his wing, and they were hanging out, and they knew each other from the comedy clubs, and Gail and Charlie and I, which I know I had told you before, we were kind of we definitely hung out a lot together, threesome, and
Can we I want to back up for just a second because I find all this fascinating. So many things to unpack, but I think we may have talked about this before with you, Denny. But the Del Close mention, obviously he's the genius behind the Second City and the certain ways to do the improv. But he was credited like as something strange, like house metaphysician or something like that, in the credit roll, which was funny to see. But so what was that like? What did he come in and kind of get the cast sort of energized or?
Well, I think that that was probably his. He had a really interesting sense of humor, so I'm sure that's the credit he wanted. But yeah, he had all this improv training. And he was just trying to bring us together to create our own out of our own minds, rather than the writers giving us writing and characters, which they did, and many were good, and they would take our ideas and they came up with other ideas. But Del's idea was to get us to get a closeness, and then we came up with some pretty wacky sketches. One of my favorites, what was it again? The when they think they're at a Tennessee Williams, Mama, Mama. You remember? Hey, what was it?
The slappers. Oh God,
no, not Dan. We're like in a we're like hillbillies. And
is that the Where's Cooter one?
Yes,
Where's Cooter?
Where's Cooter?
Yeah. And but that, I don't think that was the name of it. And I love that sketch because Gail made me laugh, and I know I'm laughing, but I go down and like this, and I know I'm laughing. Anyway, but it was very silly. But that completely came out of an improv. We did learn that the more avant-garde, shall we say, sketches went on later in the evening, closer to 1. You probably know that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So the Where's Cooter sketch, was that put together by Del Close?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes,
I never knew that.
Well, it's spawned out of that workshop.
Yes, and then somehow it was transcribed, but it definitely was born out of improv and Del working with us, and then
the Tennessee Williams Authority.
But we didn't even have any. I seem to recall the space where we would do this workshop with him was like up in some super small room. We didn't even have any.
Yeah, no, it was just in that area with the couches. That's where I remember working on it. It wasn't like we went to a special room.
On 17?
Yes. You couldn't even explore the space. I mean, I've been in a group for almost since I
since you were born.
Since I was born. Yeah, for a long time we're called the Spolin Players, and that's based on Viola Spolin, and she actually preceded Del Close. But anyway, so the Spolin Players. So I came out of this whole improv world. I don't know where I was going with this. Help me.
Well, I was in the Spolin Players briefly with you too, but I think you're saying that the Spolin
he needs space. He needs
exploring the space, right? Is what you were saying?
Yes.
Especially like the place in which you are to perform, right? Is the idea?
Well, the idea meaning that you create something in this space that's there, rather than
you got to have some room, and it's not up in your head; it's in the space. It's in the space. So let the space be your friend.
I also want to give Gail another compliment,
Oh.
and that I think she's the best improviser I've ever met.
Oh.
So there.
I will say
I love it.
Gail comes across on screen in those episodes as possessing amazing confidence, like no fear.
Yeah.
Oh,
I agree. Can I just jump on that, Gail? Because I want to say also that I do believe, like, if you were to have a new fan of Saturday Night Live, go back and watch that season. I think some of the most impressive stuff we do get to see is you commanding the stage, especially with a host. There's a lot of little things that happen between cast members, 2 or 3 cast members together, but your relationships with the host who had just come in a few days before, and then to be able to work off of them, I think is a quality that's rare for newer cast members. So for me, it's very impressive to see everything that you do that season.
Oh, I'm just going to drink that in.
You mean both of us or just Gail?
Well, you too, Denny. But I just want to, it's my first time meeting Gail. I want to be able to compliment her in what I did see.
But I do want to tell you that also, Gail, I forgot weren't you in a part of the news update? You were good in that too.
Yeah,
God.
Speaking of experimental, they brought you to Weekend Update as a co-anchor with Charlie for just a short period of time, right? And you were great there.
Yeah. Okay, go do that now. Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, yes. And then after that, after I was on Saturday Night Live, I did a couple of sketch comedy shows, and I love doing those parade commentary stuff. I like that kind of, it's just fun. It's just kind of go into that persona, it's a whole persona. You just drop in. Denny knows. She knows about dropping into character. Denny.
I had been in the famous 8H the year before, doing a children's series called Hot Hero Sandwich. I don't know if you've ever heard it. It was NBC. It won 3 Emmys, and they immediately canceled it. But it was very
NBC.
Huh?
Yeah.
I said, way to go, NBC.
I'm only mentioning it because it was very ahead of its time. But the main thing was I knew and had met all those wonderful men on the floor. Joe Dixon, Bob Van Rye, all those guys.
Denny, thank you so much for saying that, because part of John knows this, big part of my love for this show is the fact that there's nothing like it in the live television aspect, and the fact that some of those people work there for their entire careers. The last time, this is somewhat with a lump in my throat and heartfelt, that the last time we were together to do, Denny, our interview was shortly after the passing of Eugene Lee. And now just recently, it's been Bob Van Rye, Bob Tischler was just the other day, Judy Belushi.
And Franny
Lee had passed away here recently as well. And they are incredible stewards of what this is too. Some of those folks that have worked tirelessly behind the scenes are the best at what they do, period. And I love to just hear about the relationships and the love that you have for those individuals. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah. And Wilson, first name.
Davey.
Yeah,
Davey Wilson, director.
Dave Wilson.
Yep.
He'd been there forever. Yeah. What a great director. What a great guy.
Big teddy bear guy.
And it was really cool to go in the control room. I'm sure you guys have been in there, but like all these cameras, it's like, oh my God. And Dave Wilson was at the helm of all that.
Amazing.
Brilliant. Yeah, him and Bobby Van Rye and Joe.
Oh,
yeah.
Joe Dixon, I think he was the guy who did the countdown, right?
5 seconds. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Which still, so I was taught when John and I were there at the studio this past spring. One of the stage managers now, Jenna and Chris Kelly, is the guy. Lorne came to him. Apparently, this is Chris's story to say, "This is my best Lorne impression I can do." He's like, "So, Chris, you're going to do the 5 seconds thing."
Again, the crown.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Gail, you mentioned Anne Risley, and though I have sort of found her, and she's been hard to track down, would love to speak to her. She has fallen off the radar a little bit. Yeah, but she has been. I don't know that since COVID, but she had been teaching in Arizona. She had a workshop for young aspiring actors, and so she's been doing some amazing things. Well, what do you? I don't know. I don't suppose you guys have kept in much contact with her, but what do you remember about Anne other than her couch?
I remember that couch. That was, and nothing else happened on that couch except my back started having problems. And I went to some weird woman after that, some weird woman who had really bad false teeth to help me. And she was like, she chewing around with her teeth.
It's sections.
And she'd be stretching.
You didn't want to play her on Saturday Night Live?
Oh, well, it was just, she was supposed to be helping me, but she stretched me. I don't know. Anyway, what? Anne Risley. Well,
I remember one story about Anne Risley.
Well, yeah, I remember her. She had really nice shirts. She always
beautiful clothes.
Yes, beautiful clothes. She dressed super sophisticated. She was clearly a New Yorker, really classy. I'm just like off the turnip truck practically. And
it's okay.
And she was cool and sophisticated, and had amazing complexion.
No, she was a very beautiful woman, and I guess friends with Woody Allen. We'd heard.
Yeah.
I remember my Anne Risley. The first thing she said to me, I was the last female,
hired. To be cast?
Hired. I was the last woman cast. Okay. So I came in my first day, and she said hi to me, and she said, and I was just like beside myself to be there and walking in 8H and hired and on Saturday Night Live, etc. She said, hey, how'd you like to go over to Saks? They're having a sale on winter coats. And I said, I don't think so. I was just out of my mind. I couldn't imagine, leaving. Anyway, I thought that was funny. I guess maybe ultra sophisticated.
Right. So, well, I do think there was a natural fit for the two of you who clearly, felt that were more flexible in terms of, broadening the characters that you would play, the impressions that you would do. I do believe that Anne, I don't know her now, but just comes across a little bit more stilted on the show, whereas you can clearly see the I think both of you, how naturally you fit into the SNL machine. It's just a circumstance and timing thing why it wasn't an extended period for many years on the show. But I do want to make sure that while we're here today with both of you to just dive into some of the moments that we didn't get to discuss previously, that I know that some of the listeners who would have checked out some of those sketches would be very interested in hearing about some background perspective on. One of them, Gail, I do want to ask you is about, I spoke about your ability to work with hosts. Ellen Burstyn has always been an episode that I think people credit as being a great Gail episode. So if there's one that you're looking to get to know Gail Matthius, I think it's a great one to go back and check out. I know a lot of people know your recurring characters, but I believe you had a character you brought in from your stand-up act that you did at the end of the night with Ellen, where you're sort of, you're like a trick-or-treater wearing bunny ears, like that type of thing, and you're sitting down at the table and talking to this older woman. And I think you're so brilliant in the scene, and I would love to know your perspective on creating that moment on the show.
Well, I already had that voice because I had that little girl voice, which I'd always done as a little girl. And then as I became a woman, I kept it. And I went back and forth to it a number of times also in my stand-up act, where I'd read a Dick and Jane book. And it got really dirty just reading the Dick and Jane voice and big Dick and funny little Spot. Yeah. So those were the words. I just read the book. So I just, when I very likely a Pam Norris sketch, I just suspect it might have been. And getting that opportunity to be opposite Ellen Burstyn was so cool. And, I'd been in the theater. I graduated with my theater degree. So theater was my background as well. And I don't know, it just made perfect sense to be in that sketch with her. And I felt perfectly comfortable. I knew all about the scary people at the end of the block when you'd go trick-or-treating in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Don't go to that house. So I could almost draw from real life about it because I had experienced that as a little girl.
Well, you are, but no, that was a great episode. You
Sorry,
mentioned Jon.
I don't know if that answers your question, but
it does. It does because,
Yeah.
like I said, it's the last segment of the night, but it's one that I think is brilliant.
Well, yeah, that one of those things where they shoved it towards the end of the night because it's not like it's not a big laugh. It's just more theatrical, and that was cool. That was super cool for me.
Well, it was the same episode, Denny, that you both are, Debbie and Vicky in the Planned Parenthood.
Oh, so good.
I wanted to share something about Ellen Burstyn that she, and it is about Planned Parenthood. She told me something that I never forgot. It was so brilliant in terms of her as an actress. And by the way, that was a very, very touching sketch, Gail. I bet Pam Norris did write that because she always had such a, and she went on to do Designing Women. I'm sure you know all that, but it was so heartbreaking and touching and tender. But when I played Debbie and against Gail's Vicky, and I remember Debbie was like slow, you know what I mean? And not as quick. And I was trying to really create that in a way that was truthful because I'm pretty quick. And I remember Ellen telling me, maybe what you can do is, I must have asked her, or she said, maybe what you can do is when she talks and says her line, you hear it in another language first. And then you hear it as it is. Yeah. And I'll never forget that. It was the most brilliant acting little kernel and advice, and that's because that rhythm was so different from my own.
That is a gem.
It is.
I never knew that.
That's
either.
really cool.
See, I'm so glad you brought us together today so we could learn these things about each other. So it's so cool that we have these different perspectives on these sketches too.
Yes.
Yeah,
You remember things. You remember things that, and I remember my perspective. Anyway, go ahead.
And that's the original conceit of the show, right? Was that we had these not ready for primetime players. And it's not to say that you both didn't have a lot of experience coming into the show, but I guess the idea was that we were going to bring in established hosts who were able to lend a hand and sort of guide the stars of tomorrow. So for each of you, I mean, you mentioned Ellen Burstyn, but was there any other hosts that had come in throughout the season that sort of, you built that relationship with and helped lead you into your future careers as you moved off of the show?
I know we both loved working with Debbie Harry. She was wonderful, and we became friends with her, and she was just fabulous.
Yes,
yes.
I mean, Elliot.
The Valentine's episode, Valentine's Day, yeah.
And I do remember the first show, Elliot Gould telling me, because I was so nervous. And I remember him telling me, I try not to take myself too seriously. And that stayed with me always.
That's a gem. That's a good one.
Can I ask something about Elliot? There's some people who, I can't remember if we talked about this before or not, but some people claim, I don't know whether it's true or not, or if you guys even remember, but it was the first episode of the new cast. Did he walk in there expecting to see, Gilda and folks, or was he?
No.
Did he? No, it was a new season, right? Absolutely.
He knew he understood what we were up against, and
he was very kind and sweet and gentle, like a sweet dad.
Yeah, really, really generous and calm and a pro, and he knew what we were facing.
He did. He did.
He was a pro. He was a absolute, seasoned pro. Hello. Yeah.
Yeah. And Gail, for you, were there any hosts that you bonded with that you felt like really gave some great guidance for your career?
For my career, just probably again, back to Ellen a little. I mean, I don't know if she ever said anything. Yeah. I don't know that I was probably that. I mean, I would have, if I'd remembered, I'd share.
That's fine. That's really cool.
I'll say this, though I don't know what all you do remember about this. One of the more newsworthy or interesting musical guests is the time that you had, the comic opera cast of the Pirates of Penzance, show up there for there was a Christmas episode because I think they did.
Gail thought you were going to say
Carol.
Prince.
Well, I am going to get to Prince, but I did want to say the cast of Pirates of Penzance was something like you don't see, you not before or since, really.
We didn't have a chance. We were, speaking for myself, and I assume it's the same for Denny, we didn't really have a chance to hang out with the musical guests because we were so busy memorizing, costuming, hair dry runs. That sounds bad.
Like when you don't go to the bathroom.
Sounds painful. Anyway, yeah. So we didn't really get to hang out with musicians, and some of the musicians, like Captain Beefheart, he was scary.
That was different too.
He was scary. But Pirates of Penzance, I sort of remember that, but they were just being shuttled in on their own. And we were kind of cordoned in a way, kind of kept away. There was just no time to hang.
I'll just say briefly that it was very separate. I remember becoming friends with Tony Azito, who was in that when I moved to LA. Very funny man. I think he's in heaven now. But also I remember Aretha Franklin walked by me in the hall and told me I was funny, and I thought, I'm going to faint.
Oh my God. That's great.
And I think I probably already told you, Prince was very to himself, and because he was so unbelievably shy.
Yeah.
But that is, again, I know probably not a whole lot of time to mingle with the musical guests. You had the benefit to experience Prince's network TV debut was on that program. And that's, the way he was even introduced by Don Pardo, I think was kind of as a special. How did they say that again, John? Because it was kind of like nobody knew who he was.
I don't remember actually, but it was unique for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing him while we were doing sketches. He was from Minnesota, so being South Dakota, Minnesota, I thought, we'll have something in common. But I just saw him sitting up in the stands, kind of spread-eagled, or in the stands, otherwise known as the audience, in the audience, by himself between rehearsals or rough through or whatever we were doing. And he just was sitting there like, and I was like, he was just exuded to stay the F away.
Yeah, he had this presence. Now, he was asked to come back and be one of the musical acts for the 15th anniversary. Denny, I remember you were there for the 15th anniversary. Gail, I don't remember if you were 15th. Yeah, 1989, right? Yeah. Music.
I'm the 25th. I thought you guys were at the 25th too.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, I think so. I'll have to tell you a story about that party. It has to do with my husband if we can get back to it. Go ahead.
We didn't get invited to 40, and we hope we'll be invited to 50.
John and I are going to make everything in our power. Not that we have any, but we're going to go, gosh darn it, Denny and Gail, if they're not there. But no, I was just connecting the dots that Prince had just done the music for Batman. And so he was asked to, they had the little Batman logo behind him on the 15th anniversary thing. And anyway, so that was just my Prince connecting the dots. But I do want to hear, anniversary parties, and Gail, your husband, and great story, because this sounds like a good one.
So, John sat down. I think I can't quite remember where we were sitting, but I'm sure we were sitting together, Denny. But John, my husband's name is John, and on his left was Paul Simon, and then maybe a couple persons down was, drum roll please, O.J. Simpson. So he was.
I remember that one. Yeah.
So then the 15th show is wrapping up, and we're all standing up and stretching, and everything's like, hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? There's Tom Hanks. I'm saying hi to John Goodman or whoever else was there. John Goodman's a neighbor. Just random. Okay. Yep. So we stand up, stretching, putting their shirts back in, and OJ heads up the stairway, and my husband looks down and goes, oh God, somebody forgot their wallet. And he reaches down and picks up this wallet that is just stuffed with cash. A lot of cash. He flips it open, and it's OJ's wallet.
OJ's wallet. Wow.
So my husband just goes, excuse me, sir.
Juice?
Mr. Juice, sir? OJ, I have your wallet. Oh, thanks, man. Thanks. He handed over the wallet. That's the end of the story. But just weird.
Did you two ever think that if you didn't give the wallet back, like the alternate timeline?
The alternate timeline.
Yeah.
I remember there was a famous Yankee pitcher there. Well, at one of them, that was
look at your cute dog. Look at him.
Oh, Teddy.
Teddy. Hi, Teddy.
And Candace Bergen, and just everybody.
Yeah.
Well, can I ask you about we talked about the 15th and the 25th, some big events, but during season 6, was there after parties, and did you guys go to them? Because I know that during the original era, they were like some really crazy stuff happening. Tell me about it.
I think we went to the same place at 1/5 Avenue.
We did 1/5. I think the premiere episode was in the Rainbow Room.
Yes, yeah.
And to this day, I have a little piece of some kind of diamond tiara or whatever that I found on the dance floor, and I still have it. It's completely diamond encrusted. It was broken off from something. Somebody's missing.
Was it O.J. Simpson's?
Very likely.
Likely, probably.
Yeah. Anyway, so Rainbow Room, and
I just remember 1/5, but there was a lot of that's when we could do some drugs and drinking.
Yeah, there was some carrying on.
Yeah.
So my question that I'm always been curious about is, like, when you went to those parties, would the original cast show up to them, like the people who had left before you, or it was just the people that you were there with?
No. In all honesty, the original cast, they had mixed feelings about all of it. Basically, I think in a nutshell, they thought it was going to all end. I can't say the cast did, but I think that's probably what NBC and Lorne thought, that it was all going to end. So, but Jane Curtin came and welcomed us. And then
nice.
Bill Murray did our last show and welcomed us.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to transition over to, because Denny, you told this wonderful story when you were on with us last time about how you really felt like that Bill Murray episode was like the beginning of something great potentially for you guys. So I just would love to know, and this is really a question for both of you, is just like the mindset of that week, going through it, and then feeling like you had a really great show. Do you have some nice memories of working with Bill Murray that week? And Gail, feel free to jump off, and Denny, let us know both your perspectives, because I just love getting to hear both sides from both of you, how you felt about that week.
He was very generous, very understanding. He knew what shoes we were trying to fill. I can't remember if it was him or Chevy or somebody picked me up. Who picked me up? And swung me around at the clothes or something. But other than that, other than Bill being funny and playful and right back in it, knew how to do it, Yeah, take it away, Denny.
Well, I was going to say it was kind of a healing, him coming.
Yeah. Yes, it was a blessing.
That's what it felt like. He was one of the
Yeah.
originals. He was going to be the guest, the host, and so it felt very much like a healing. And also, one of my favorite sketches that I did that whole season was with Bill, and
Script and development.
The one I'm in the laundromat.
Oh, the laundromat, right.
Okay. And because it's funny and it's it allowed me to do some. I think it's a little. I don't want to say heartbreaking. It's not that, but I got to go a little deeper. You know what I mean? There's a sadness about the character, and as far as doing acting with Bill and improv, it was such a gift. It was such a gift.
Did you write that one, Denny? Did you bring that in for Bill? Did you was that a sketch that you wrote? Working with Bill, the Bubba's.
Bubba's Wash.
I don't know who the author was. It wasn't my idea. I was just blessed to play it, and we were a couple that had divorced, and and it's in a laundromat, and I just got to do like a little deeper acting then.
It's a deeper cut and as you said, sort of pulls at the heartstrings for sure.
Yeah. And then I try to come back real fast, because there's nothing I hate worse than sentimental acting. But Bill was just and I as one of the originals, I just thought his Nick Rivers and those I just thought he was hilarious.
Well, that same episode, you're in that other wonderful sketch, just absurdly funny, is the script and development, where he keeps just changing the script, and you and Charlie are in the back, responding to whatever change he says as he's typing on his typewriter.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's funny. In all honesty, I've seen that sketch, but I forgot about that. It is funny.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah, it's a stand-up moment for me. And it's funny, as you're talking about a sketch that you really enjoyed, the Bubba's Wash sketch at the end of the night, and then the one we brought up. Yeah, and the one we brought up with Gail, with Alan Burstyn. It sort of clicks for me a little bit why I think that people are harder on season 6 than the seasons prior. And I think it's easy for people to look back and say, oh, it's a different cast and we didn't give them a chance. But I also think that there are so many segments in a given episode, more than I think any other season in the history of the show, where if you watch an episode of season 6 of Saturday Night Live, there's like over 15 sketches in an episode. And it's like they just pack it in. And I wonder if I'm curious your opinion. I'm wondering if that's because they were really trying to okay, we got to give something to Denny, we got to give something to Gail, to Charlie. We just had to find pockets for everybody. Whereas in the original years, they would do sketches that would go on for 10 minutes if they had a mini epic with multiple sets, and build out something that involved the entire cast. And that is what I wish they had done or given you that opportunity to do.
Well, that's an interesting take, because I think about what's happening now. There's so much film, and those things go on and on. I mean, these live sketches, that's tough. And by working through those 15 sketches a show, we had a lot of material, and it maybe was and not as flushed out as it could have been had we been allowed to expand it a little bit more. Whenever I remember, I think it was the Malcolm McDowell show. I was in the first episode, and I think Malcolm McDowell was the second host.
Second.
Yes. Yep. Second. Yep.
And I wasn't in the show very much, and it was just I was crestfallen. It was really a weird feeling. But I think that what was the question? Oh, shit.
Well, we were talking about the amount of time that we had per sketch.
Kind of pacing wise, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we just were throwing stuff at the wall, see what would hit, what would fit, what would stick.
Some of the pacing, it's interesting too. Some of those cold opens were super short. The one with Gilbert on the electric chair. I think, Denny, you play his mom. And it's kind of just one joke. The beat happens, live from New York, and it goes. So, I mean, after the monologue, you still have this much show to fill. You know what I mean? I think it is. I think you bring up an interesting point, John, that yes, part of the struggle could be just understanding the pacing of things.
Yeah, it's just I think that whenever we had a great sketch from you, Denny, you, Gail, or anybody else on the show, it was just in a different format than what we had seen previously on Saturday Night Live. And I really wish that they had given you the leash to be able to develop the characters more and build the worlds of the sketches that you were in. And I do believe that all of this being a new cast maybe would have washed away over time if we got more character development from the sketches that you guys were putting on screen in season 6. That's sort of my take on it.
I think it's a very, very interesting point you bring up, John, and I never thought of it. And I guess it's your perspective and having a knowledge of the big whole. But I think you really have a point there. I'm thinking of sometimes the cold openings where they go on, and then now and that like things are brought in. I know there was one sketch, but it was a sketch. It was called The Gavones. And Joe was in it, and Gilly was in it, and Ann was in it. It was Italian family, were the Gavones, and that had a nice elongation and using almost everyone. But I think that's a very, very good point you bring up.
Yeah.
I don't think they were thinking, well, this will be for Denny and this will be for Gail. I don't think there was at all.
They were not doing it even, Steven. But I think maybe just by let's see who hits. Let's throw them out there. Let's see who's going to grab the attention of the audience. They were just
Joe's New Jersey guy hit, and Gail's Vicky hit, and I did with Gilly
Herman,
Pinky Waxman, which I had brought, and those were the ones that started to take off pretty quick.
You know, another one I actually think that we didn't talk about, Denny, last time you were on, but I think your Amy Carter impression is one that they could have stretched out, like the same way that Aykroyd was doing Nixon and Chevy did Ford. We could have developed the presidential child as a character in a way, because it was so fit with your personality, the way that you were able to just like be like this hyperactive child, that I think that they could have done more with that.
Amy Carter was a real gift. I can't remember who wrote that. I didn't write it. I didn't come up with it. I was just trying to do a satire on Southern, on and just go wild. I think I did I know for sure 2, maybe 3 sketches as Amy, and you were Nancy, right?
I was Nancy Reagan,
and then. They let it all go. Yeah.
The mean majority, where we all stood there and we're Reagan's people, we're the mean majority. That was a cold open where you and Charlie and I and is it just the 3 of us? I can't remember.
Just the 3 of us. But there was one where Joe and Ann, I can't remember if they were before they did it, and then it turned to Charlie, I guess, with the new administration.
Right. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, exactly.
But they didn't hold on to political stuff. You're right.
What about? I might be the only one who feels this way, but I enjoyed the runner throughout the Charlie Tilton episode, the Who Shot CR. Now, this was at a time where I have fond memories of on Friday nights, sort of watching Dallas with my mom. Of course, I was not really understanding it all the way, probably, but so that runner, I don't know. I always sort of soft spot for me. Though we do know how it ends in the good nights.
Yeah.
You see, and that sketch was why I know I could speak for myself when people said, "Oh, I want to talk about your career in Saturday Night Live," and I thought, "Wait a minute, do you want to know about what happened when Charlie said the F word?"
About the F-bomb, yeah.
That and you do know what Gene came running up, or somebody came running up, and looked at everybody and went, stretch, because we were trying to fill the time.
I do remember
he was improvising and looking around, but they had given us live instruction to fill the time.
Running short. Yeah.
We're running short. Yeah.
Yeah, he improvised too fucking much.
Yes, man. You are.
And then
right.
also Jean was responsible. I think NBC wanted to get rid of Charlie in that moment, and she didn't let them.
Do you guys remember what it was like for Charlie throughout the season? Obviously he's no longer with us and we can't ask him, but just from a psychological perspective, I always feel like going back and watching, I feel like they almost wanted him to be the star originally. And, I don't know if that was a role that was perfect for him. Obviously, he did Weekend Update. He did the Rocket Reports, which I think a lot of people enjoy in retrospect. But did the season take a toll on him even prior to this whole Who Shot CR thing?
No, I think he was digging it. And he's so dashing and handsome on camera and then to be such a goofball. I think he handled it beautifully and relished it. I didn't see any that he felt it was too much. Oh, you mean as far as what happened ultimately? You mean?
No, not like in the 2000s, but I just mean
okay.
like as far as watching him throughout the season. Yeah.
No, I feel you're right too. I felt like Charlie was a star. He seemed that way to me, and I think he'd had television experience doing actual news. He seemed so authentic and so tall,
great voice,
and a great voice, and wildly funny. And I thought the Rocket Reports were genius. Like the pre-Letterman stuff going out on the street, and I don't think he felt the weight of that, nor did I ever feel from Charlie like he thought he was better than anybody.
No.
He was,
he was our beloved friend by then. And no, I think.
Was he there at the 15th and the 25th anniversaries?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
No.
Gail, you don't think he was?
Maybe not 25. You don't think 15? I don't know. I feel like
the circumstances of which he was, I think he wasn't there.
Okay.
I don't think he was there. Because I don't think so. I'd have pictures. I think I'd have pictures. Yeah.
I feel like people always ask both of you whenever they talk about your season about stuff that made it on air, but I don't know if you get asked very much about stuff that got cut that you wish would have made it to air in season 6.
God.
Do you remember of any sketches that
it was just the other day, right?
Yeah. Well, was there anything that you were like, oh, I always thought about that one that got away, that sketch that I wish that I got on?
I have all the scripts.
Oh my goodness!
All the scripts of the sketches you were in, or all of the scripts?
I think I might have had probably, for dress, and then had the dress script because they didn't have time to suddenly print another on-air script. So I have all the scripts.
Wow.
They're worth a lot of money.
I was going to say, for an archivist, I just perked up in my chair, but I think that anybody who keeps things like that in great, as mementos or memory items, I think, Gail, I love that. I love to hear that.
Well, it was a rather significant time in my life.
Absolutely.
It was a ginormous, it really allowed me to have the rest of my career, because that's what, everybody
said. So do you remember anything that you wrote at Dress that you wish would have made it? Either of you?
Me? I remember that I had this character that I brought to the show, Woodswoman, and they only did one quick, like a still of Woodswoman, and it took me a while to get people on board with that character, and I thought it was a wonderful character, and I was sad that it wasn't really developed. But there was one thing that I had done in my comedy act, Dina Disco. And so it was very rewarding to, I think it was Kenny Vance, and we recorded. They took me and I became a member of ASCAP for a minute. Is that the musician?
Yeah,
Anyway,
absolutely.
and they made a recording of Disco Meltdown, and that was very satisfying because it was like in my mind. So with computer generated stuff, they were able to create a disco in a nuclear power plant.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
so funny.
as far as what didn't get on the air, I need a little tutorial about what ended up on the air.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, well, we can help you with that. That's no problem.
Oh, good. Well, that'll be
yes.
fun to look at the sketches because I have all the sketches on some giant format too that my uncle recorded. I mean, they're like,
God.
Oh, I'm a saver.
We can help you with all that.
I'm the queen of throwaway. So the only, I have my memories and all, and all that, and the only thing for Saturday Night Live I think I have is when we left, they asked us if we wanted sketches, and it's really a big fat thing,
Yeah. Oh, I still have that. I still have that thing with the spring loaded that we would put the
spring loaded binder.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
order.
Don't throw it out.
I love it. I mean, it's hard.
I use that in all my plays ever since I.
That's so beautiful. I could see it in my brain. Wasn't it gray?
Gray.
Saturday Night Live.
Great.
And it had the logo on it?
I probably have that.
I don't think it had the logo. I think it just had black lettering, Saturday Night Live.
Oh, just
really,
okay. Yeah.
Really like office gray, industrial looking, useful thing.
But those are nice though. Those spring loaded ones. Everybody has the 3-ring stuff these days,
Just clip it in there and
Well, Denny, I can imagine, for a lot of people, like you move and you can't keep everything all the time. I want to talk to you about your book. I'm so excited about this. But like one of the things, you were brilliant on Dream On, and it's been so hard to find because of those clips of like old TV shows or whatever. But I think I shared with you that I did locate the entire series. I sent you a message. It's amazing that sometimes some people will just fall in love with the show or whatever and have taped it or done whatever. And so then if you just find the right person, then you can relive it again. But I have fond memories of just that was like a HBO show when I, turning of age where, oh my gosh, there's nudity on this show, kind of thing.
Woo!
Yeah.
Yes, that's brilliant because I know like a lot of techno young kids and nobody could find it, and I believe it's the licensing fees from those old movie clips from early television.
Oh, that's the issue.
Because they always cut. Yeah.
It's not the nudity, because we did another version for Fox. It's not the nudity, but 6 years. So that's great. You found it.
So we'll talk again afterwards if you're still looking for it. We'll make that happen.
Because we are headed towards the 50th, and like I said, we just released the season 6 Everything You Need to Know video. There's going to be so many people watching your season in the next year. So many new fans that are going to check it out. And I just would love to know if, maybe they'll find this interview, if you have a message for them about, them watching the show, and anything that you'd like to say to some of the newer fans who watch it, who, can get your perspective on it. So Gail, anything that you would like to say to some new fans of Saturday Night Live?
Do I have to be really wise?
You can say anything you want.
You can say it as Rowena. Just get a cigarette.
Oh, that is such a great idea. So when you kids are watching the show, just know that you can be funny too. You can from the Midwest or the South. And so appreciate you watching those episodes, and know that even though we were under tremendous scrutiny, we had a ball. And I think as much scrutiny and criticism as we were subjected to,
There's some really good sketches in there, and I'm very proud of them. And I'm especially proud of my beloved friend, Denny. And that's the best thing that came out of this show for me.
Wonderful. And Denny, I know you are going to be talking a lot about your experience because you are working on a book right now, which I encourage all of our listeners that when it's out and when it's ready, get there and buy it right away because it's going to be brilliant stuff. So do you want to promote that to our listeners?
Well, yes, it was my book. I can't give the title yet, but I hope I hope it to be coming out quite soon. I'm just finishing it up, and I have a deadline, which is like January, February.
Perfect.
Anyway, it's a book about my career and a lot of stories of my childhood, and there's quite a bit about Saturday Night Live, and oh man, I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm very excited about
it. It's really funny and it's heartbreaking.
I'm so excited to read it. When the book comes out, what I think we should do is that we'll be like right in the middle of recapping episodes of season 50 of Saturday Night Live. So it's a perfect time. SNL's on everybody's mind. And then maybe we'll have the two of you on to talk about one modern day SNL episode, get your opinions on a couple of new sketches and stuff like that. And then we can promote the book at the same time. That could be
the 50th anniversary of SNL just gave me a little fire under my butt, and I'm just going to focus and just wrapping it up to definitely have it published by then.
When I think about Denny Dillon, I always think that the perfect Jeopardy question would be something about, the answer is who is Denny Dillon? The question is which actress appeared on both Saturday Night Live and Saturday Night Fever?
The Saturday shows.
The Saturday shows, right.
Anything named Saturday.
Saturday night.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And Gail, I just want to say, absolute honor to have you on today. So, both of you, a pleasure to get to see your chemistry again on screen. Fantastic. So if you're enjoying this interview, we do encourage you to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Spotify so you never miss anything going on here at the Saturday Night Network. We have all of these shows happening every single week with the Everything You Need to Know series. So you'll get to see what happens after Denny and Gail, where Boo no longer on the show. We wish they were there longer, but we'll get to see more from the future of Saturday Night Live as we go through it. And we'll have other SNL stories over the summer. I also want to shout out a couple other of our friends in the SNL community who did some great work, including our friend Andy Hoagland, who wrote a great interview a few months ago with you, Gail, for Vulture, which was really cool. So shout out to Andy.
Andy's
for
the
that
best.
one.
Andy's the best.
Awesome. And then I know our friends over at the That Week in SNL podcast, they interviewed you, Gail, a few years ago back, and I think it was 2020. And that was like a 2-hour sit down with you where they went through almost every episode and asked you about your sketches. And I got to listen back to it. And it was really, really great, Gail. So if you want more of Gail, it's a great place to go.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you guys. This is, it's back in the old days. Live television.
People love it.
Yeah. Great.
People love it. And that was our conversation with Denny Dillon and Gail Matthius, season 6 cast members. James, that was so much fun.
Yeah, it reminds me, we sort of said this at the beginning, but this show has this way of bringing people together, and we learned some things about Gail. She's a vocalist. She's got that band, The Shambles, that she's performing in now, and singing and playing harmonica, all that great stuff. So it was great to have the two of them together.
It was great to see her and just to know like what she's up to now. That was also really cool. I think the thing that I'm going to take away from this episode, in addition to talking about a couple of moments, discussing, why certain things worked in season 6 or not, is just truly the friendship between the two of them. Like, we knew that they were close and we could see it on screen if you go back to those, sketches from 1981. But the truth is like, just to see them compliment each other and how heartwarming it is. This is like people who were, it almost feels, James, like they were at war together. They're bonded in that way, that they went through this like almost traumatic time where the whole world was talking about them. And now 40 years later, they get to discuss it all. And I just think it's just like magical to get to see that friendship.
Yeah, Spade and Carvey, they talk about that a little bit on their podcast about just their castmates and even from other casts, they all are linked by this common thing that is really pretty special and unique. But wow, they got emotional. It was heartfelt. I loved seeing it. It was so sort of gratifying to be just a small part. And hopefully those of you listening, watching, have enjoyed it too, because I think those two are two ladies that I just wish we would have got to see a little bit more on from the show. But of course, they're talking about some of their other endeavors right now, and certainly encourage you to check out the what is it, Dark Winds, I think, coming up on AMC that Gail's in. And of course, I'm so excited about the release of Denny Dillon's book here soon.
Yes, and hopefully we'll have Denny back at some point to talk about her book when that is available to everybody to purchase. So, as we're headed towards everything you need to know about Saturday Night Live season 7, I'm very excited about that one because, obviously a lot of changes. Denny and Gail are not around for that season, but we do get to meet some new cast members and, talk about the crazy changes that are happening. It is a wild season. So that one will be out tomorrow evening. If you're following the journey of SNL history, we were releasing that one. So we'll have all the Ebersol years coming out over the next few weeks, and we're going to continue on after that. So it's a very exciting time for us here at the SNN. And if you enjoy SNL Stories, the podcast where we interview alumni, and maybe it's your first time, getting to watch us and joining our family over here at the SNN, we do have a great backlog of interviews with different cast members and people who worked at the show. Some great ones that we've done over the years. Bobby Moynihan, we spoke to him twice. I mean, I love Bobby, so that was so fantastic. We spoke to Paul Schaefer. Neil Levy is somebody who we spoke about just recently in the Everything You Need to Know About SNL Season 6, about the guy who really sort of discovered Eddie Murphy. He gets into that on the podcast with us. So there are some great ones there. And also interviews with current cast members like Heidi Gardner, Monkey Johnson, Mikey Day, Andrew Dismukes, James Austin Johnson. So it's very cool that we get the opportunities to do all this here. And I'm looking forward to sharing some more SNL stories with all of you at some point this summer as we continue our journey archiving SNL history.
We got stories.
Yes, we do. All right. So that was our show today with Denny and Gail and James. And of course, if you want to make sure never to miss anything, you got to subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and follow us on all social platforms at the SNL Network, especially as season 50 is inching closer. We have a lot of great stuff on tap for you. Okay, my name is Jon Schneider from the SNN, and we want to thank our presenting partner for today's show, LateNighter.com. We will see you next time, everybody. Have a good one.